Hey folks, we are live to do some more Spelljammer combat and exploration artwork. Here's our book cover. Give me a minute here for me to fix my screens and stuff. Looks like we're okay there. Just adjusting my windows a bit. Good. And now I want to take a moment to check my signal, make sure we're coming through strong. I'll walk through my intro spiel and then we'll get to work. So hold on real quick and then we'll get to work. So that sounds like it's coming through crystal clear. That's good. Here, and then I have an intro spiel. So let's see if I can spiel through this real quick with you guys. Hey, okay, great. So, hey, my name is Theurgy. I create role-playing game supplements. I publish them online for people to use. Right now, I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. We are currently working on the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration supplement that we'll be publishing on DMsGuild.com. Once it is completed, you can actually see a slew of work that I've already produced for Dungeons & Dragons that is currently on the DMs Guild by checking out any of the links down below in the description. You can they're all 100% free previews, so you can read through all of them cover to cover. Probably about maybe 150 different illustrations amongst the books that are in there. If you're an art enthusiast, be welcome to take a look. If you're a D&D enthusiast, all the mechanics are there for you to read. And as a DM, I run campaigns from level 1 to 20, probably about every 250 hours or so before starting over again. So all the tools that I build are meant to be player and DM use from 1st to 20th level. Go crazy. Other ways to support the channel other than purchasing the books, which is greatly appreciated, and thank you if you do. You can follow me on Twitter at Theurgy, Filkearney, as in my title, to find out when I go live. I've just posted that I am live on Twitter, so if you want to find out when I'm live in the future, you can follow me on Twitter as well. There's also, in the description down below, a link to my Patreon, where I often playtest content and have advanced look-sees of what we're working on. You can take a look at both the martial powers as well as the commands of Armies, Guilds, and Kingdom system that we'll be developing for Dragonlance later this year. And other than that, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon here in YouTube for me to continue to accumulate followers and support. Once I get to 1,000 subscribers, I get paid to paint every time I log on and stream. So that would be amazing, and I greatly appreciate it. Speaking of YouTube, there's a lot of playlists that I have accumulating. The Spelljammer Combat and Exploration, we're up to apparently, episode 144 now. This is the book cover we created probably back around episode 15, so you can check that out. Last week, we worked on ship tokens for vessels, stocking up the amount of weapon systems that are on a ship to have it better reflect the mechanics that we have for squadron command, having enough weapons to match the number of squares that a ship occupies. Like the Shrike ship is 1, 2, 3 squares, so it needs 1, 2, 3 siege machines and 1, 2, 3 mounted weapons. The squid ship that we just showed a moment ago is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 5x5 craft, 250 feet long, so it needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 siege weapons and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mounted weapons. That's typically in Spelljammer, you're going to see about an air supply for 100 days for a crew of 5 for every 50 feet that a ship occupies in space. This is a 5x5 space, much like an ogre would fill a 2x2 space at the 5-foot scale, a 10x10 square. This is 20. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5x5 at the 50-foot scale is 250 feet in length. 5 medium-sized creatures per 50 feet. That's a crew of 25. So you got 3, 6, 9, 12, 19. These take 3 each. A trebuchet has a crew of 7. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 7 is 19. And then the pilot is 20. And that leaves 5 spaces open for any additional crew that you might want, say a party of 5 that is like 5 characters that aren't necessarily crew or a ship pilot, although you can reverse those roles as you please. But that gives us 5 extra characters, which if you want to have full gun stocked all the time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weapons there. So the mechanics for air supply and required crew to work all the weapons remains consistent using the system we have and the rules on air in general that are presented in Spelljammer's Adventures in Space. So that's pretty happy about that. Just centering the ship up here a little off center. There we go. Lock that down. Okay, great. So we had done a slew of ships previously. We had fleshed out and resolved the Star Moth. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4x4 space. So it has 1, 2, 3, 4 siege weapons and 1, 2, 3, 4 mounted weapons, right? So that's mounted and siege weapon systems. So we're going to instead dip into the fighter craft. So we have siege weapon, we have ballista, and we have mounted weapons like harpoon flingers, for instance. So these craft, this is a 5-foot scale. So these little 1, 2, 3, 3x3. This is a goblin arrow from 2nd edition. It's basically just a wagon with a weapon in it and a minor helm, which are pretty inexpensive. Minor helms are like a normal vessel major helm is 5,000 gold as listed in the Spelljammer's Adventures in Space by Wizards of the Coast. That's for ships up to 500 feet in size. These smaller craft, which could fit within a 50-foot square, only require a minor helm. The major helms are 5,000 gold a pop plus cost of ship. These minor craft are more like buying a wagon or a rowboat and then putting a 500 gold piece minor helm in it so the thing can go. It doesn't go nearly as fast as the major helms, the vessels, but they go fast enough to stay in combat at the combat scale. So as long as they're hopping from, if you're in pursuit, flying at 100 million miles per day, these craft can't keep up. They can only go 100 million miles per day. So they are literally only have 1% of the maximum speed as a major helm vessel does. So these fighter craft, if you're defending a stationary target that doesn't require intense speeds, you only need to move up to, say, 100 miles per round is plenty sufficient for you to be able to defend a 1 mile or 10 mile asteroid, right? Because you can't really effectively fight with weapons more than a mile away. So your scale of movement is going to remain within a mile during a typical round of combat, with which both vessels and craft with major and minor helms can easily do. So you don't have to worry about that. But if you're going at high-speed pursuits, if you're not defending a stationary location, like if it's not a base or just a planet, for instance, being in orbit where it's relatively stationary during the course of a day. If you're in pursuit though, moving at high speeds, and the craft can only get 1% of the speed that a vessel can, to be able to effectively have fighter craft attacking vessels, you can have a vessel as a carrier that has a gravity field that these fighter craft can float inside of the gravity field of the larger vessel. So as one vessel bumps into another vessel, these fighter craft can flow back and forth between the different gravity planes between the different ships. So you can basically drop a payload of fighter craft from your vessel's carrier onto enemy vessels, so that if the enemy ship tries to get away, the larger vessel tries to escape, it has all these little fighter craft already floating around inside of its gravity plane. So even though the enemy may move away from the carrier ship, the fighter craft are still sitting inside of the gravity field or the gravity plane of the enemy ship. So it has to specifically take actions to shake them out, to disengage, and to basically 5-foot step away from these fighter craft that are inside of its space, to be able to shake them loose of its gravity plane so it can try to yeet out of there. And if it can succeed at doing that, then the carrier vessel can just scoop them up and continue pursuit. And if it can catch up and again bump into those gravity planes, it can then have those ships go over and start harassing the ship again. So the fighter craft play a really fun role in that they're basically mobile weapon platforms that can move from one gravity plane to another and then harass whatever targets is assigned to, whether it's the ship itself with the siege weapons, or if it's crew and other weapons that you want to disable. You can do so with the smaller mounted weapons. So that's the idea behind it. And we want to make sure that we have enough weapon systems to support the full size of the ship. So basically every 2 squares of space that a ship occupies, it needs to have 1, 2, 3, 4. If you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it only needs these smaller craft. Obviously, this goblin arrow is too small to accommodate this larger ballista, so it doesn't have one. It only has 1 mounted weapon, and it could basically have it could have up to 1 mounted weapon per 2 squares of space. But the base damage that, say, a harpoon flinger deals is 2d8 damage. If you were just to fire one, like say your character's a fighter or a cleric or whatever, you can just grab one of these mounted weapons and fire it, and every time you hit, it's going to do 2d8 damage. So the base damage that one of these smaller weapons deals is 2 dice. So it's 1 die for every 10 feet. So it's 1d, like 1d8, for example. These harpoon flingers do 2d. If you've got 1, 2, if you've got, like, say 3 or 4 of these blades inside the same 50-foot square, that becomes a squadron of goblin blades. And then you could have all those ships fire in unison as a volley that you could command as a single action if you were the commander of this squadron. So the amount of damage that single volley of ammunition deals, regardless of how many ships and weapons are on those ships, it's 1 attack roll, and the amount of damage that it deals is going to be 1 die for every 2 squares of space. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5 dice of damage. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, but the harpoon flinger itself already does 2d8 damage just normally. If I had 2 weapons on here, and this were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares, like a 6x6 space, and it had 2 weapons here, that 1, 2, 3, it wouldn't be you have d8, 2d8, and then 3d8, right? But the weapon itself does 2d8 already. So you would only need to have, if you were up to 4 squares, you only actually need 1 of these mounted weapons to deal the appropriate amount of damage dice, because harpoon flingers as a mounted weapon naturally does 2d8 damage, which means that 1 weapon can cover the damage requirements in a squadron. For one weapon is sufficient for a 4x4 space. So if you're having a 1, 2, like if you were to have an 8x8 ship that filled up all of this space, you would technically only need 2 harpoon flingers on it to cover for the 1 die, 2 die, 3 die, 4 dice, and then it goes up to 5 dice with a full 10x10 craft. So you could technically only need 3 harpoon flingers across this full 50-foot space to have sufficient damage to be properly represented in a squadron. So, because when you scale out this 50-foot square of these multiple ships inside the squadron is only 1 square here at the vessel size, and the vessel deals 1 die per 50-foot square, but it's times 10 damage. So it would be up to, like, say 1 die. Like if you're having, like, say 4 ballistas here, each ballista does d4. That's d4 times 10 times 4 squares. That's 44 times 10 siege damage. But if you zoom in on this guy and he's doing d8s, you got 1d8, 2d8, 3d8, 4d8, 5d8. This thing's going to do, say, up to 5d8 damage, which also happens to be 40 damage, which is the minimum siege damage that a single 50-foot square could be. So either doing 5d8 or d4 times 10, either way, a 50-foot square is going to deal up to typically anywhere from 20 to 40 damage, or anywhere from, d4 times up to 40 damage is the maximum. And here at the 50-foot scale with 5d8 damage, the maximum damage is also 40 damage. So if you have a number of squadrons of craft that are floating inside of the gravity plane of, say, this vessel, which is 150 feet long, I could have like 1, 2, 3 arrows. These arrow craft are only 3 by 3. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I could easily have 3 of these ships sitting inside this 50-foot scale, 50-foot square, and have all 3 of them coordinate as a single squadron. And then I could have multiple squadrons sitting inside of this 3 by 3 space with this space galleon, and they're only 15 feet. That's that's literally like this space in this area here. I could easily have a bunch of drop ships that are basically just clipped on to the side, or on the underside, on the bottom of the of this galleon, and have just a shitload of ships that could just basically cut free and swarm, which would be another reason why you would want to have crew on a combat vessel, have additional crew, so that that additional crew can jump onto fighter craft and then pilot those craft to have multiple points of attack against an enemy ship. So that's the idea behind that. So right now we're just making sure there's enough weapons per ship, per craft, per fighter craft, to fall within that band of 1, 2, like one mounted weapon for every 4 squares, 2 for 8 squares, and then 3 for 10 squares. And then that will automatically calibrate and be sufficient to properly represent visually with these icons of weapon systems, to be sufficient to match the amount of dice that you throw. So the visual here is correlating with the amount of damage that you can deal, which is why we had to add all of these weapons, like the squid ship here. It has way more weapons than it does as listed in Spelljammer's Adventures in Space. Because if I have a squadron or a whole fleet of squid ships, and each one of them is going to be able to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5d, say 5d6 damage using, like, say 5 mangonels or whatever, then I need to make sure I've got 5 weapons on any ship that fills this 5 by 5 space. And if I have 2 of these in a squadron, they would fill a 10 by 10 space at the 50-foot square, 500 feet worth of vessel in that squadron. I would need to have up to 10 dice worth of damage. So 2 squid ships with 5 siege weapons each. If I have 2 of those in a squadron together, then that's going to be the 10 by 10 square space that these squids would fit in. Hopefully that's making sense. So if not, we have a whole book dedicated to walking through and talking out the mechanics of crew rank, damage, squadrons, materials, weapon systems for squadrons, for whether they're vessels or craft. So there's plenty of material that you'll be able to read. And since this is going to be published on the DMsGuild, and it's one of my publications, you'll be able to read the entire thing cover to cover. But then you'll have, if you decide to purchase it, you'll have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different fighter craft. You'll have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 17 vessels. So that's 23 tokens that you're provided, plus all the NPC tokens for Light of Xeraxis, which is a total of 45, plus all the combat maps for, like, the Citadel of Light, Topola's Tower, the Neogi asteroid field, as well as the system maps for Xeraxis space and Doom space. That's an extra 5 maps that are included for you. So that's a total of 23, 68, 70, 72 assets, 72 different map or token assets that are provided with the book, on top of the book itself, which you'll be able to read 100% cover to cover. and then you'll see as we start building out the page illustrations for this document, you'll see us be able to use these tokens for diagrams of like images of how you build a squadron of craft, for instance. We'd be able to take an illustration and like duplicate. We could like hide the profile there real quick. So you'll be able to take, say, 1, 2, 3, and then duplicate. There you go. That is a squadron of goblin arrows. There's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. There's 3 ships here. Technically, statistically, this fills a 10 by 10 space because there's 1, 2, well, it's 9. It's a 9, this fills a 9 by 9 space inside of a 10 by 10 square. So it has 9 dice. It could like say do like 9 is what? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you round up 5. There you go. It'd be 5d8 damage that these 3 would do. And you got 1, 2, 3 weapons between the 3 of them. So you'd be doing 1, 2, 3, 3 dice, like 3d8 damage, for instance. So anyway, that's how like a squadron would look. So when we're in here and we're showing, we're dropping in illustrations of like what different types of squadrons would look like for craft and vessels, we'd be able to take this as like a real quick illustration. Like I could just take a snapshot of this and then this becomes the illustration for that example. So that fills that art space. So once we have all these assets resolved, we're able to create a ton of, we should be able to create a lot of art assets and visual examples of stuff for this book. And hopefully we'll be able to move through it pretty quickly as a result of that. So, I mean, I could potentially do, 7 or 8, 10, 15 of these little diagrams a day, maybe on a good day, to be able to start populating the book. So it shouldn't take that long to buff out all of the maps, diagrams, and movement illustrations throughout the book. And then maybe only have like maybe 15, 20 actual illustrations that I need to do, which I can start doing on the Monday morning, or the weekday, like Monday through Friday in the morning. I do token art for a couple hours, but once these tokens are all done, then I can start actually doing actual page illustrations. So we'll do all the ship diagrams and like mapping, movement diagram work will be illustrations that we drop into the book, and then whatever spots just happen to be left open after that, we can just actually put like actual illustrations into. So we're still going through that process, and we're actually just to give you guys an update. The entire book is laid out, resolved. The language has been consolidated. All of the text is in place where it needs to be. The first 81 pages of this document are like, here's like example. We were talking about these like as sample illustrations before, but we'll get into that. But the first 81 pages of this document, all the mechanics of the book are done. I just got to get the layouts. I just got to get the artwork done for it. And then we have the back 25 pages of the book is where we're currently working, which is the converting land of Zaraxis into using the mechanics that we presented in the first 81 pages. Here's how you can actually use them using Light of Zaraxis as the example. So, hey Dreams, it's good to see you, my guy. So right now what I'm doing off screen in my off time, like in my odd hours, is going through here and seeing how do I need to lay out all this text, because not all, like the first chapter, there's no changes. So in the second chapter, there's no changes. There's no change because they're just hanging out on a ship dock, fighting thugs to get aboard a ship. It's not until you actually get aboard the Moon Dancer that you need to make any kind of alterations. Moon Dancer is the name of the first ship that you get aboard, right? And here we have the breakdown of the ship itself, its core stats. And then you got the pilot, which is Flapjack, and you got the Captain Sartell acts as a siege commander aboard the ship. So we have the stats for the crew and what role they play, but I'm not happy with this layout. So right now I'm trying to figure out what layout do I want to present the information for the ship and the characters that have roles aboard the ship. Because you know that like the pilot has its steering action, it uses as an object interaction, and it can use its normal standard action to dash to make the ship move additional movement each round if you wanted to, or you could use that standard action, you know, to make an attack like ram, or if you had any special like grappling claws or like piercing ram attacks, like with spiderling legs and stuff like that. The pilot could be using that action economy to make melee attacks with weapons that are built into the ship. So I'm still figuring out the language on that and how I want that to look. But once I lock down how I want this stuff to be laid out, we'll then be able to flow through the rest of the document and provide all of that. But we have like the replacement text blurbs, because some of the things that get said in Light of Xeraxis don't line up with how mechanics work in the exploration section. So like if they're talking about spotting something like as the start of the adventure, or as the start of an encounter, it's like, oh, we can see there is this nautiloid craft that's approaching. It's like, well, we need to properly scale it so that you can see it at the right distance. So we have to like use language about like the orreries. How soon can you detect something in a radar scan using your orrery systems to be able to pick up that there's like this craft for you to go explore. And then we go into the mechanics of like the Theurgy raid, for instance, Terrors of the Void. There's the Eben Snare is the Night Spider vessel that the Theurgy have command of, but they also have the squadron of spiderling craft that are basically sidekicks to the Night Spider vessels. So you have a squadron of the Night Spider itself here. I'll show you the visuals here, because that's kind of what we're working on here anyway. So you got the vessel here, right? Here's our squid ship, which I fucking love. But here's the Night Spider that fills a 4x4 space. So it's a 200-foot vessel, right? Each one of these can act as piercing rams. These are mounted rams that can engage and grapple smaller ships, like a craft, for instance. It can grab a fighter craft in its teeth. So like this is 80 feet across, right? So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 feet across. And this here, that mandible mounted grappling claws are essentially, if we look at it, those are about 30 feet across. So, but they're at that same mounted weapon scale as these craft works. So I'd be able to like stab this manta ray ship with one of these these really large legs. I could impale this manta ray ship with one of these legs, and that would be it, because the ship is too small to tolerate like that leg there. Like if I were to stab a hole through that manta ship, like the size of this leg would be like the size of this signature, like this 10 by 10 space here. Like that's the kind of hole that leg would punch through the ship. So if I want to treat this craft more delicately, I could grab it with grappling with my mandible claws, which would have 2 points of contact, which I'd be able to like grip and hold on to the ship. Now it's grappled. This fighter craft wouldn't be able to get away from my Night Spider ship. And obviously this thing is like fucking decked out. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 siege weapons. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 mounted weapons. Plus it's got the mandible claws, which are melee weapons. And it's got 8 of these legs, which are also melee weapons. But you can only have one, you can only grapple with enough weaponry equal to the number of squares of ship that you're fighting, like for example, this lamprey is 1, 2, 3. It's a 3x3 ship. So I could stab it with 1, 2, 3. I could have 3 of my, like if my Night Spider were to creep up on this lamprey and grapple it, I could stab it with up to 1, 2, 3 legs. So I could grapple it with 3 points of contact. This lamprey would have to break grapple with 1, 2, 3 legs if it hit with all 3 of them. But the captain, the pilot of the ship would have to make 1, 2, 3 successful attacks to be able to get that many claws stabbed into the ship. So the ship could be attempting to shake its way free of the first claw and escape, while the Neogi pilot is attempting to stab it with a second leg. So you've got this back and forth of melee combat of stabbing, holding, impaling, and grabbing, and trying to manipulate each ship while they're within melee range of each other. And while these ships are stabbing and clawing at each other, you could have crew jumping. You could have crew jumping from one ship to the next. Now I've got Umber Hulks that are jumping off of the Night Spider, running down the leg of if I were to, sorry, fun tangent here. I'm kind of rambling because I like to play. But like if this lamprey out here and it's being impaled by these legs, I could have Umber Hulk coming off of this weapon deck, run down this leg as a gangplank onto the lamprey ship, and now I'm dumping Umber Hulk onto your deck, and you're using their hypnotic eyes to ensorcel your weapon system crews, so that the Neogi could take your crew as slaves and captives without having to kill them. The Umber Hulks come on board and they disable your crew. If I can mesmerize your crew on this ballista weapon, that ballista can't fire anymore because your siege commander just lost his crew to an Umber Hulk that's making hypnotic eyes at your team. Now your fighter, as a character, has a reason to pull weapons and start stabbing that Umber Hulk to try to break it from seizing your team. And if you fail the combat, then you may find your ship captured and all of you taken aboard the Neogi ship as captives, which gives you the opportunity to, of course, break free, take control of the ship, free your own vessel, free the slaves that are aboard the Neogi ship, take the Neogi ship to, like, say, Rock a Brawl, and claim a bounty for it, which would probably be, well, it's typically half the value of the craft or the ship. And since this is a 200-foot vessel, it has a retail value of 40,000 gold. So if you were to able to capture and bring this pirate ship back to the Rock of Brawl, which is part of the adventure content for the Light of Zaraxis adventure we have, if you can capture this and bring it home, you can get 20,000 gold as a purse for capturing these pilots, which you could then turn around and hire this the second wind, which is the next ship that you take command of, to then go off to Doom Space to go do the adventure. So we can fill in the mechanics of working with these ships to help feed better narrative or alternate narrative into the Light of Zaraxis adventure that Wizards of the Coast produced. But now that we have this language about like the value of ships and how you bounty them and what you would do to actually take command and capture the ships and like all this stuff, during this encounter, you are actually aboard a space galleon. So the space galleon that your ship that you're currently aboard when you run across this Night Spider, I mean, that's really intimidating. That Night Spider is huge compared to your galleon. So, but during the course of the encounter, when you escape the Neogi and escape the asteroid belt, you actually have the opportunity to run across additional ships. There's patrol galleons that are protecting the outer range of Rock a Brawl. So if you choose, you'd then be able to take command of these 3 vessels and then start hunting the Neogi. Because these 3 vessels, that's 1, 2, 3, that's a 9x9 squadron of galleons compared to this 4x4 Night Spider. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weapons versus their 1, 2, 3, 4 siege weapons. As long as you can keep your galleons from getting within melee range, like using disengage and dodge actions to stay aloof and out of reach of its claws, you can outmaneuver and potentially drop this ship to 0. So then it wouldn't be able to fight back. It wouldn't be able to move anymore. You'd then be able to tether it and then drag it back to the Rock of Brawl and claim the bounty off of it. So that's the idea behind that. So that's some of the fun stuff that we can do with this system once it's in place. And so that's what we're in the process of building right now. So I think I've probably rambled on enough. So let me go ahead and stitch up all of this stuff And lamprey. We'll leave the night spider out because it looks dope. Squid ship here. Having said all that, I'm just talking about squadrons. They're fun. But that's get out of here. That's not our objective right now. Right now, we are just making sure that we have enough dice worth of damage on each ship, on each one of these fighter craft to be properly representing the damage that they have in a squadron. So this is a 1, 2, 3. It is up to 4, so it needs 2 dice of damage. A harpoon flinger does 2d8 damage, so it only needs 1 weapon for up to a 4x4 space. This arrow fills a 3x3 space, which rounds up to 4x4 as far as weapon damage dice are concerned. That requires 2 dice of damage. The harpoon flinger, this mounted weapon, deals 2d8 damage by itself normally. So this arrow only needs 1 mounted weapon, and it is sufficient for representing its weapon strength when it's part of a squadron. So that's all we're doing right now. So the arrow is good. It also happens to have this. It's a slashing ram. This is a blade. This is a sharpened blade. So when this ship comes in, it can strafe across the edge of your ship and slash sails or slash your deck. But it can deal melee damage in a swipe as it goes by, and that would do, oh god, what would that do? 1, 2, 3. It'd do 3d8 damage on a swipe attack. So that's not a lot compared to, say, a 400 hit point. That night spider, for example, has 400 hit points. That a 200-foot craft has 400 hit points. Doing on average 3d8 damage on a swipe doesn't sound like a lot, but if you've got 3 of them as a squadron working together, doing 98 damage on a swipe, that's like an average of 50 to 70 damage on a good hit. So, and your craft only has 400 hit points. A small squadron of aerocraft like this can tear apart a vessel in a matter of rounds if it isn't defended. So if you can disable that craft and scuttle the pilot to not be able to defend the ship, you can start carving it up pretty elegantly if you have fighter craft on your team. So anyway, that's some of the ideas behind that. Let's see. This is a cuttlefish. It is a, what does that fit inside of a? It's a 1, 2, 3, 4. God, what a compact combat unit this is. These are 5-foot squares, right? So this is 5, 10, 15, 20 feet. That's a 2. That's a 1 and then 2. And I just need to switch out this weapon here to make sure. What are you doing there, buddy? There's something. Oh, hold on. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, I locked up. Well, that explains a lot. I'm going to hit save, and then we'll have to restart this one. Occasionally, Photoshop locks up when you use the OBS software for streaming. So, normally it doesn't really lose anything. There we go. I'm going to color. I'm going to conceal the profile for now. See, there's our deck plan. That's the ground floor level of this. And then there's the upper deck for the pilot. And if we go in and there we go. There we go. So you can see here. How am I trying to do this? Here we go. So here's the quote unquote first floor, right? You got a weapon here, and then you got these little stairs that go up to the second floor. And that's where the helm is at. The pilot sits here in the chair up here that overlooks things. This is just a portal you can see through. But if you're sitting in the pilot chair, you basically become the ship. And you can animate the ship as though it were a creature. And it has all these tentacles that it can run around on. So if you are piloting this vessel, it's basically the size of a gargantuan creature. It's just a 20-foot by 20-foot ship. but when the pilot animates it, it becomes a living vessel. So it can run around like if you wanted to challenge high-level characters, you could not only have them fight a Illithid, but you could have the Illithid with these cuttlefish as mecha suits that can run around inside of a dungeon. Like, it's only a 20 foot by 20 foot. It's no larger than a dragon. So if you're like, say, Storm King's Thunder, for instance, if Storm King's, like, if an Illithid ship decided to try to attack the flying castle, like, say, with 20-foot corridors, then you could fit one of these cuttlefish down that 20-foot corridor. You can see 5, 10, 15, 20 feet wide, while your character is here in this 5-foot square. And this thing has full weapons and it's got all these grappling squid arms, and it can fly. So it can basically fly up and just grab you. Sorry, lost the camera. Grab you, and now your 17th level fighter is now grappling a giant cuttlefish that's doing, like, 3d8 damage every time it crushes at you. So it can actually whittle down a high level character pretty quickly. They're fucking dangerous. So Squiddy, yes. So that's the gist behind that. These fighter craft are really fun. My favorite, of course, is the Spiderling, which is just an ultra combat weapon. It's an 80-foot. It's an 8x8 at the 5-foot scale. That means it's 40 feet long, and it's large enough to have both a ballista as well as 2 weapon-mounted systems. And again, each mounted weapon is a 2d8. So that's 2d8. That's 48. 4 dice. 1, 2, 3, 4. This thing is already compliant, so I don't actually have to do anything with it other than fix the weapons that are on it. So I'm gonna stop rambling for a hot second. Maybe I'll stop talking for a hot second and actually fix these things. Oh shit, I forgot to set a timer. It's 10:12 now. I still got 40 minutes. God, I've been rambling. There. All right, 20 minutes on the block. So I'm just gonna go through and fix these. I think all the weapons are already correct. I just need to do a spot edit just to make sure. So I need one. I can either have one, like, up to 1 siege weapon, and that's it. And then I can have basically 1 mounted weapon for each 4 squares of space that the ship occupies. Since this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's 8 divided by 4. I only need 2 mounted weapons. I have them, but they're not using the proper icons. So I want to go in and fix the icons that are being used. These are the cheaper mounted icons that we've started using to differentiate between siege weapons and mounted weapons. Let me get one more copy of that. Duplicate that, that, and that. There. And then boom, 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 boom. We can drop down here into the mounted weapons down here. This is literally all we have to do today. It's a very light load, but I just wanted to jump on and work on these, just get them taken care of. And it's fun stuff to talk about, and it's just product hype. I'm just doing product hype right now. Don't mind me. And once this thing publishes, we'll be able to do a full walkthrough of all the talky talk. Transform equals flip horizontal. There. 1, 2, 1, 2, and the siege weapon is already correct. Oh, that's right. I needed to. That is a flaw. Hold on. Deck plan. Weapons. Yeah, I need to have this. This is a conceal those weapons. So you get the piloting. You get the. Let's see the. Come on, Granny. Thank you. The pilot sits here. There's a window here that looks out of the spider. We can see that here. It doesn't really show, but this is an open deck, and this is topside deck, right? Because you got the profile over here. You can see the pilot's here. This front porch is loaded with a ballista, basically. And then inside, under full cover, is the pilot. And then there's storage space, and then there's a ladder that goes up, which we see here. Here, that H represents a stairway. It's not really an H, it's just a ladder. It's a ladder icon. So that goes to the top deck, but I don't have anything built for the top deck. I neglected illustrating that point. So I now must come into here, create wrong square. There. Now I just need to create a little ladder. What shit? Come on, Kearney. Yeah, I should really do this more professionally, shan't I? There. There we go. As usual, it's Saturday. I have a brunch date with my gal. That is pending, so I'll be able to float here for a little bit while we wait for brunch to happen, and then I'll have to bail. But there we go. So now you have, see, so this will take you below deck or up top deck, and here there's a door that closes off, and that opens inward like this, so this pilot can remain isolated and safe from the crew around them if necessary, because Theurgy tend to use mind and like charmed humanoids as their labor, including in weapons. So one creature for each mounted weapon, and up to 3 creatures for the siege weapon, though you can have just 2 crew and be able to, like, you can have a minimum of 2 crew on a ballista and not affect the rate of fire on it. And so this pilot that sits inside of the cockpit here is within range to be able to command the siege weapon to fire, as well as be able to bark commands to the siege crew, the mounted weapons on top. You just basically command them to fire, while that same Theurgy pilot can also be operating these legs as piercing weapons to have melee combat. Great thing about the Spiderling ship, when you succeed with an impaling attack with one of these piercing rams, you're automatically grappling your target. And since these ships are so small that they can't match the size of like this craft fits like in a space like this 50-foot space, right? You can't, something this small can't grapple something this big. Just like with the normal 5-foot rules, if something is 2 sizes larger than you, you can't properly grapple it, right? You can't, a human can't hold down a huge sized storm giant. The storm giant is just too big for the human, unless the human has some sort of special properties that allows you to grapple something of a larger scale. These fighter craft are 1/10 the scale of these vessels, right? Craft are 1/10 the size. Craft can be up to 50 feet, while a vessel could theoretically be up to 500 feet, though Spelljammer doesn't present any that are larger than 250 feet. They could get up to 500 feet in size. And so that would mean that the craft is at best 1/10 the capacity or potential size of a vessel. That's way too small to actually grapple one of these ships. But obviously this ship could easily grapple by stabbing it with a leg, punch a hole through the thing. Now, you know, you've got a spiderling on a stick. So the vessels can easily grapple the craft. The craft cannot grapple vessels. But if you succeed with a grappling strike, you automatically grapple as a craft. What happens when you grapple something too large for you to effectively grapple? You hold it. So we have the holding mechanics back from 3rd edition that we're bringing in. But basically what it means is that although I can't prevent you from, like, normally grappling would prevent your target from being able to move. That's one of the really great benefits of grappling. You have a hold on them, so you can move crew from one ship to another safely along the grappling prow. And the other benefit is that that craft can't. You can hold that craft still. You can hold it in position so it can't move away from you anymore, or move anywhere unless you're moving. Also, you basically, when you grapple something, you basically start towing it. So if that ship that you're grappling is too heavy for you to tow, you're both stuck where you're at, but neither one's going anywhere because you're basically having that strength check keeping you in place. If that grappled ship is within your towing capacity, then you begin towing it and you can take it wherever you want, including smash it into the side of a wall or something if you wanted. These are things you can do. That triggers the crash rules. So you can crash a ship by grappling it and then ramming it into something, which is fucking fun. But for these small fighter craft, when they grapple these larger vessels, they just like this. The small fighter craft is only 50 feet. So like if I had one, like say drop on here and punch a hole and stick into the side of the ship here, it's grappling on it. This vessel is not going to be slowed down. It can still go wherever it wants, but it can't get rid of this craft. If it's holding onto your ship, you can't get rid of it until you're able to break its hold, break its grapple on your ship, so you can escape it. Because again, these things can just tear your ship apart. It has a siege weapon. It has a ballista. It will eventually. A ballista does D4 times 10 damage. This thing has 400 hit points. Eventually, that ballista is going to wreck this ship. So you have to get those craft off of your ass, or it will destroy your ship eventually. So they become really obnoxious because they basically become something that jumps on and just starts stabbing you while they hang off of you. Like that giant we were using before. If your fighter were to run up, grab hold of that giant's beard, and just start taking his axe and hacking away at its stomach while it's hanging off of its beard, then it's eventually going to kill that giant. So that giant has to get you the hell off of it so it can get away from your blade. These fighter craft work the exact same way, but they actually visualize it really well. Because I could take like this, and this is really crappy and quick, but I could easily take this and then drop it down to the proper scale, total tangent as usual. But if I drop it down to the, see, that's how big it actually sits. So if I were to have this thing jump onto the side of your ship, like this is literally how, like this 50-foot space that it occupies, it would literally sit inside of this space. And we'll have a 50-foot token for this craft so you can actually visualize this in combat. So this thing's actually, it'd be on a transparent layer, but I did a really shitty job because I'm just hacking through this as a quick example. But yeah, this craft could stab on here, or it could even crawl along the deck and impale your ship here, and just basically sit here. And now it can start dumping crew off of that craft onto the deck on the fighter like if I were to land here, I can start dumping crew on this back deck. Or if I landed here and stabbed hold here, I could unload crew onto this weapon deck back here. Or if I landed here and impaled and stuck here, I could start dumping on it, and I can start disabling the weapons and the crew here. So this ship loses access to all attacks except for its melee its melee leg piercing attacks, while this ship is still secured to the back of the ship, causing, just basically punching a hole through it using your ballista that it has on its front deck. But in the encounter, this Night Spider has 3 of these spiderlings that are basically clipped to the bottom of it. So when it finds prey, your ship that it can attack in the asteroid field, it basically unclips these things, basically unclip and then float free, and now they can start flying around and causing their own trouble, in addition to this full battle platform attacking you as well. So it has that sort of Star Wars vibe going to it, maybe, if that's how you're feeling it. That was the inspiration behind it. So yeah, and it all uses like we were talking like 2 sessions ago. It all uses that 5e combat mechanic of movement, action, bonus action, reaction, and it just uses all of that action economy. And the pilot becomes the creature, which is the ship. And then all the other characters that are on board the ship with you are either helping the pilot gain advantage, helping the pilot maintain concentration, helping the pilot get more movement, firing weapon systems, either yourself or commanding a crew of siege crew to fire the weapons with you as part of your action economy. Or you could be using your actions to help give advantage to attacks to the siege crew, or to cast spells to enhance the attacks of the siege weapons and the ship itself. Or like you could cast that you can amplify your spells. So like the ship has, like, say, mirror image. You cast mirror image on this craft, and all of a sudden your enemy thinks there's a squadron of these spider craft that are coming at you, but there's actually only one, because you're using mirror image at a larger scale by upcasting it using an amplifier, which is like the orrery or an arcane cannon, an amplification device that lets you dump upcasting spell slots to treat your ship as though it were a creature being affected by normal spells. So, and then you can like do a fireball. You could through an amplifier, you can upcast the range of the fireball to hit ships that are like 2,500 feet away. You can lob a fireball at them. It's still only going to do 8d6 damage. But against like a spiderling craft that only has 40 hit points, that's really fucking deadly unless the pilot takes all that damage from the fireball for the ship. So the ship acts as the maximum armor class that a ship can have is 18, unless you cast a spell to improve it, like haste or something like that. So they're really easy to hit. So the ship acts as a proxy to attack the pilot. So a really good strategy is to put your melee character in the pilot seat so that they can use their extra attacks to make extra melee attacks, and they have more hit points than, like, say, the wizard would have. So when the ship starts taking damage, the fighter can start chewing up his hit point pool instead of the wizard trying to use his hit point pool. And while a rogue has great action economy to be able to use their bonus action to do stuff, they don't have a lot of hit points. So they can't take on a good toe-to-toe combat with another ship, because the rogue is going to have his lunch eaten. He's going to lose his hit points, or the ship's going to get fucked. So having like a paladin, a ranger, or a fighter, or even a barbarian, those martial classes is really ideal to have as your pilot if you're in combat. If you're trying to do a stealth mission, having your bard or your rogue in the pilot seat makes sense, because you can use their action economy and their spell ability to help hype the ship to be able to like have Pass Without Trace, for instance. You can upscale Pass Without Trace to stealth your ship so it becomes invisible, or like darkness as a spell. You could drop darkness on your ship so it disappears from orrery scans. So you can slide into somebody's base of operations without being detected, and so somebody has actual eyes on you directly. But like if you have a darkness spell on you, there's a possibility that you can slide between the spaces of the stars, so your ship can remain invisible even if you're looking out across the field of space. You still might not be able to see the ship if you're not just outright casting invisibility on your ship. So these are all this shit is all laid out in the mechanics in here. So, but it's basically just D&D at the 50 and 500 foot scale. All the stuff that you do at 5 feet, you just have to amplify or upscale to the 50 or 500 foot scale to be able to use properly. Anyway, pontificating forever, yo. That's what I do. That's apparently what I do here. That is, why did I make such a big thing? Oh, I was just looking at larger. I was just looking at filters to be able to. This is yeah. I was experimenting to see how well I could take this smaller craft and upscale it to a larger resolution, so that I'd be able to peel off pieces of this as part of the like increase this, so instead of being 50-foot squares, I can actually fit it on 5-foot squares. This has the same resolution as this does, and I've upscaled this to here to properly fit the 5-foot scale. If this were to be a 200-foot craft, I can probably upscale this thing. And I was using different filters to see if I can make it look good, and I think it looks pretty good. So anyway, that's a tangent as well. This thing has proper weapon systems. It's now that it has its ladder, it's properly built. We're done with the spiderling, so we can actually lock that one down and conceal it. We already know the arrow is good to go. We can lock down and conceal that. We're now working with the cuttlefish. The only thing we need to do with the cuttlefish is is resolve its weapon system. That's right. So I want to just grab a mounted weapon and duplicate that. Take it on down to the cuttlefish. Clean that up. Boom, ba bop bop, boom, ba bop. Duplicate that layer. I'm going to take this out of the color, and then we'll go down to the profile. Burp, burp, burp. Yeah, we're doing okay. Dum, 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 dum. Bring this down to here. Free transform. Boom. There we go. There, that is all I need to do for this. Obviously, the cuttlefish with its tentacles, it's much more dangerous in melee combat than it is at range. But again, what do Lithid want to do? They want to capture things and take them so they can eat their brain. This has this hatchback here. This can open up as an object interaction. The pilot can just think this thing open. So if I grapple a target, I can use my tentacles grappling, and I can just shove them into this, and then I can close the hatch up behind them, and now they're trapped in this holding cell, and it can hold. I can squeeze up to 4 medium-sized creatures into this space, and so this is like it's not only a harasser and a ship, swarming ships, but it's designed to break open ships and grab weapon crews off of enemy ships and dump them into its hold. So like if I'm fighting you in the Lithid, and the Lithid have these cuttlefish, they could send cuttlefish over and just start snatching crew off of my ballista and off of my trebuchet. So just like with the Beholder, just like with the Neogi and the Umber Hulk, the Neogi send Umber Hulks over to hypnotize the team, so they can gather up all the team and put them onto the ship. The way that the Illithid work is that they send cuttlefish over and just snatch crew directly off of your deck and drop them into their holding pen here, and then fly back to the Nautiloid and just dump them directly into the slave pens, and then fly back and take more crew from your ship. So it's a different strategy, but they're both trying to steal your crew without killing them, which is a really cool aspect of Spelljammer. How many of these horribly dangerous species don't want to just kill you? They want to sell or eat you over time. Like they want to capture you. They want to capture you alive. So they like your ship because they can sell it or use it as bait to collect more people that they eventually have to eat or sell off to get other things to eat. So it's really, I really love the internal just the internals of the what am I trying to say? The self-reinforcing sort of genre of Spelljammer, having these just overpowered creatures that aren't there to kill you. They're there to basically give you a really hard time. So anyway, I'm rambling. Don't mind me. Forever rambling. But I absolutely love that about this setting. One of my favorite parts about it. Mounted weapon is there. We're going to duplicate that group, and then we'll drop it down to here. The ballista is fine. You can see there's a stairway that's partially or a ladder that's partially concealed by the ballista weapon here, but it's still there. And then in the nose of the ship, and then we'll duplicate this group. There, that takes care of that's that's right. So we have to look at our weapons here. So this needs 1, 2, 3, 4. That covers one weapon here. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to need a second weapon, and then 1, 2 is a hangover. We're going to need a total of 2 more of these mounted weapons to be properly calibrated. Like I could take that and extend it out to. Yeah, it actually fits really nicely. Fit the weapon there. We've got one here. Let's look at the insides. Pilot goes here. Weapon systems up front that the pilot can actually use as well. And then you got the living area. The back end here. You got storage in the abdomen. So I need to figure out mounted weapon. Boy, I like this sitting here. I like the idea. Let's grab that and drop it down to here. What if I were to swing the ballista back to here? No, I gotta fix that. Hold on. Whew, man, it still fits. I could do that. And then we can be cheeky monkeys and duplicate here. Wow. Yeah, that all fucking fits. That is unexpected and amazing. So let's I guess fix our deck. So 1, 2, 3. We need the 3 mounted weapons to occupy, because this is a 10 by 10 ship. So that means it rounds up to 3 mounted weapons to be able to cover the amount of dice that this thing can do in damage, like 5d8 damage. Between the 3 weapons, we can have that, or you can operate each individually for 2d8, 2d8, 2d8 to get added value, because you're using more action economy to fire each weapon individually. You get more performance overall from the ship, as opposed to if you were at the squadron level, like have like 10 of these in a 500-foot square. In the 50-foot scale, this is only a 1 by 1, right? 50-foot by 50-foot space in a 500-foot square. You could have up to 10 of these flitters become a 10 by 10 squadron at the 500-foot scale. Like 10 of these things swarming one of these. Like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That's 5 by 5 space. I could have up to 5 of these things here fit inside the space with it, but I could have, again, up to 10 of them inside of a 500-foot space to be a 10 by 10 squadron, dealing with its ballista here, like 10d4 damage with the ballista weapon on the back. That's 10d4 times 10 siege damage against this craft that only can take 400 damage total. This would be d4. This would be 10 of them. 10d4 times 10 is potentially 400 damage. So if 10 of these flitters in a full flight squadron were to attack this like 10 of these could potentially take out this Night Spider in 1 round. Like that's the kind of stuff that you want to be thinking about, like around 15th to 20th level. Like what scale of conflict do I want my characters involved in? Well, at that point, your characters could have a full armada of craft that is like your own pirate fleet that you command. And if you're going to run across just a single pirate ship by itself, it's going to get fucked, because you can just send a whole swarm of ships after it and just take ownership of that. That's my ship now. Well, this is like a CR8 encounter, like by itself. So like an 8th level team could take on one of these by themselves and have an okay fight of it. But against like an 18th level team that has like 7 hammerhead ships and like a cloud of 20 fighter ships or like fighter craft, there's no way this single ship's going to stand alone. It's going to get slaughtered, which is proper scaling. So anyway, there's the thoughts behind that. What I need to do right now is work on the weapon deck to rebuild how you look. So how you look. Let's revise our top deck. So we're going to take these mounted weapons. Yeah, we still got 15 minutes. Could probably build this out. God, I love how that just fucking fits. That's so great. Everything about creating this has been, other than the amount of time that it takes, absolutely everything about creating this work has been just a complete blessing. There versus there versus there. Yeah, we're good there. Yeah, we're good there. So let's take 1, 2, 3. Let's take these things and really drop them to the background there, so that I can get through here. Build this out some more. I shouldn't be doing on that layer. Yeah, that is the color that I want. Okay, so let's do that. I'll build this out like that. I have Monday off because of the holiday, which means I've got extended production time that day, as in I can be productive all day. I don't have a day job to worry about. That is ultra exciting to me, as always. All right. I've got the gist of where this is supposed to be now, so I can do this. Yeah. Let's go with copy paste. 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 Merge them layers down. Next, we want to grab this. We'll be able to use symmetry to just duplicate the other half, as we've often done on these streams. If you've been here more than once, you've seen that we basically create half of the craft and then mirror it so it's symmetrical. Symmetry is beauty, especially in ships. But yeah, Monday morning when we do NPC token design, I can spend a good 3 hours on that. So I'll be able to get through probably 2 or 3 tokens, I reckon. And then I can, I'll be on Monday night to continue work on the Eberron cartography. We're going to start coloring the village. And then, during the day, between 9 a.m. and 7 p.m., I've got a, oh boy, that's a good 10-hour block. I might be doing some side commissions, but otherwise I'll be working on the layouts for the Light of Xeraxis conversion section. And I probably won't stream that. I only do a little bit of page layouts actually on stream because it tends to not be very popular. But if I find myself in an interesting pocket of space that's worth sharing, I will. But it's just when I do layouts and just pushing text around and like changing words to make things fit, it's the absolute worst content that I produce. Like, it has the lowest interest amongst people that look at my stuff. So I do it sparingly. Eberron cartography by far gets the largest amount of traction in what audience I have, which is I just think super encouraging. Sometimes I see random pixels and it turns out it's grit on my monitor, which just absolutely cracks me up every time. Go here like that. Very good. Beep, 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 beep. That should be good. Why is that? Oh. That's why. I hear you. All right, we are almost in bonus time. Merge that down. So we got this, this, and this. We can duplicate this group, free transform, flip horizontal now, flip vertical now, baby. Merge that group. Merge. Don't do it. No, merge. Oh, no. No. That's my interstellar Matthew McConaughey impression. It is. I recognize it as the worst. Acknowledged. This is a hell of a party yacht, you know. I'm gonna have to fix this back deck here now too, but that is the deck plan. We can leave that concealed for now. Profile, mounted weapons, gear, wings, body. Duplicate the layer. It's only 5 feet more than it was before. That's cool. God, that's so elegant. There. 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 Like if you removed all the weapons from this, it becomes a pretty good private yacht. It's 50 feet in scale. It can hold a crew of 5 for 100 days, and it's large enough that you can stock up enough supplies to maintain a lifestyle for 100 days with it. Most craft are too small to have enough cargo space for them to be able to have supplies to maintain a lifestyle. So it's always squalid conditions aboard a craft. Unless they're large enough like this to be able to have a large enough storehold to be able to have food, enough space for furniture for you to relax. It'd be cozy, but you could potentially maintain up to an aristocratic lifestyle for like something like 10,000 gold per season. It's expensive, obviously, because it's aristocratic is the word I'm trying to use, and thank you for that language. But again, maintaining a lifestyle is also something that we provide mechanics for, like rules, as it were. Because lifestyle mechanics normally don't make that much of a difference in D&D. Most people don't care because you're always running around and you're pretty much camping all the time anyway, unless you're buying into like a hotel or like a hostel or something, which is going to have either a poor or comfortable or even wealthy or aristocratic lifestyle, depending on what kind of a room that you're buying. But when you're on a ship, you have to maintain your own lifestyle. And if you have a crappy lifestyle, your ship's your weapon crew loses rank. They become less effective. If they're in poor or squalid conditions, they don't have enough amenities for them to stay happy and battle ready all the time. They're fatigued by the crappy living conditions that you're forcing them to remain to endure for months. So it's so maintaining a good lifestyle, a comfortable or better lifestyle, is important for the health of the ship and the crew. And if you don't, then you have morale issues. You have to start checking morale. If an infestation or a fire erodes the quality of lifestyle that you provide on your ship, then that can trigger a morale check, and which is basically an ability test for whoever's commanding the ship to keep the crew happy, to keep them from mutiny. if you fail your morale check, the team, the NPCs will mutiny, which could force them, which may result in them requiring that you pay more, that you allow them to disembark at the next location that can maintain the same level of lifestyle that you promised them that you couldn't maintain, for you to restock your ship. Or they could just decide to ditch altogether and like, we don't want to work with you anymore, so you lose your crew. Or they could try to actively and hostile take over your ship, with the primary goal of getting back to a location that can maintain the same lifestyle that you had promised them aboard the ship. Well, if you can't maintain it, then we're going to steal the ship from you and go someplace where we can, and we're going to leave your ship. Or we'll kill you and take your ship ourselves, depending on, you know, what your relationship with the crew is. Like, if you have them as slaves and they mutiny and take over the ship, they'll probably kill the commander and take the ship for themselves, and then either go to a port of call to cash in booty for the ship, to then leave all their own merry ways with a, you know, compensation for their suffering, or they can decide to take the ship for themselves and start a pirate life themselves, and that's kind of the story of the Githyanki. So that's good. Transfer there, and then we'll duplicate this layer, and we'll flip. There. Good. All right, so that is the flitter, and that all fits now. It's compliant with its weapon systems for the size of the ship in regards to being part of a squadron overall. So I am happy with that. Now to the manta ray. Manta ray is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 divided by 4 is 2. So it needs just to swap out these weapons, and that'll be good to go. It's already properly calibrated. Take this down to 50. Siege weapon, and now we have these two mounted. Free transform. Bum, bum. Free transform. Bum, bum. And the pilots at the back end here. You can either occupy or be adjacent to the space that a weapon occupies to be able to operate it. So you can have a pilot here, you can have, and then the pilot could operate one of these mounted weapons, and then have another mounted weapon. So you got pilot, mounted weapon crew, and then you could have 2 or 3 more. So you have up to 4 creatures aboard this manta ray to be able to fire the ballista, both mounted weapons, and be able to pilot the ship. And this is compliant. And these are that's a grappling ram. So you can pinch her onto a ship. Pinch. It's a piercing ram attack. It's just basically a grappling claw. So it's a mounted grappling claw. So it grabs hold. And it can do crushing damage by pinching super hard each round. Or it can just hold on and then either grapple a creature or a craft of same or smaller size, or it can grip and hold on to a creature or like a vessel that's a larger scale than it. But that's all I needed. This is already compliant. So it's that every 4 squares equals 1 mounted weapon, and each craft can only have 1 siege weapon, period. So manta ray is done. Easy peasy. Skiff. So a skiff is 1, 2, 3, 4. It only needs 1 mounted weapon and 1 siege weapon. So it is already compliant. That was super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Take this down to 50. And then let's grab our mounted weapons. Duplicate the layer. Bum, bum, bum. Boom. Pilot can operate the mounted weapon, or it has a bludgeoning ram, so it can bomf. It can punch things with its face, and it's too small to scuttle a vessel, but it can certainly scuttle craft, as well as just give a huge headache to whomever it hits. A siege weapon off the backside, mounted weapon, 4 squares, compliant. So all the skiff are now compliant. That means that everything's compliant now. So all of our craft, all our vessels are done. That means we don't have to worry about that anymore, which means that our Saturday is now no longer going to be building ship tokens. It's now going to be, our Saturday mornings from now on is going to be spent on page layouts and page illustrations. My Monday through Friday morning stream will remain NPC token art until the remaining 30 tokens are done, at which point it will also, my Monday through Friday morning will also become page layout, illustrations, charts, and tables. So we are quickly getting to a place where all we're working on is actual page art insertion. So I'm going to spend this week seeing how far I can get on cleaning up the ship and crew formats, because it's the technical specs for ships and crews eats up a lot of space inside the pages. Like I would say probably 12 of the 25 pages that we have back here is just ship and crew options and stuff that they're doing. Trying to lay it out in as sensible a fashion so it's easily digestible as we can make it. To make it aesthetically pleasing while informative. So, and then obviously, we have all these little open spaces that we can fill in with character art, ship illustrations, examples of engagement, as well as illustrations of these ships attacking each other. Oh yeah, and we still have to build out charts and stuff for this. So we have to make sure that we're happy with all these charts too. So we have some work to do, and we'll be doing that during our normal off-screen production time. But I am anticipating by this time next week, we'll at least have the front end of this converting light as Araxis. We'll have this converted to the point where we can start laying in illustrations and charts and diagrams and stuff. So that's our thought process. That's where we're at. We are now at 11:11. It's time to make a wish, and my wish is for a delicious brunch. I'm out of here for the day. I will be back. I'll be back Monday morning at 6 a.m. Seattle time, and I'll have that day off. So it'll be a fun day for me to stream. I'm out for today. Like and subscribe. Be welcome to follow me on Twitter at Phil Kearney. Check out my Patreon at Phil Kearney if you want to see some of the playtest content that I've been producing. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys again on Monday. So I hope you have a great night. I'll see you then.